Oh my goodness. Hello everybody. My name is Quaidson and welcome. We have for you today a Paladins Champions of the Realm tier list. I said the full title because that's how much it means to me. I have hundreds, close to 1,000 hours on Paladins. And I have a lot of experience with all the characters, some definitely more so than others, obviously. But I would like to make a tier list for your pleasure. Maybe you're new to the game and you're trying to get into it and you want to know what's the best and worst characters. I'm going to go into maybe who's the easier characters. This is going to be a longer tier list, so if you need to skip to the end, I won't judge you. I know tier list videos are sometimes hard to sit through, but if you want to hear some elaboration, my deliberation about each character, please stick around. This is going to be a long video because there are like 48, 49 something characters. There's a lot. But we're going to jump right into it with the first character here, Androxus. And while Androxus did receive some much needed nerfs, I still believe Androxus to be an S tier character. I don't believe him to be the best in the game, but he's going to take that spot for now until we fill everybody in. I'm going to keep the explanations as concise as possible. I'm going to try just to touch on things if characters need to be touched on. But for Androxus, there's not a whole lot to say. He's just good. He's a good flank. He's got good mobility. That's what you need as a flank, and he does crazy amounts of DPS. So next up, we actually have Ashe. Ashe actually has some pretty good crowd control. She's an excellent off-tank and can work as a point tank at times of need. I think she's an excellent character. Definitely a map-dependent pick, I would say. But she dives a backline so well because everyone can push behind her shield. I'm going to put her in A tier for now. I could see her moving up, though. And speaking of excellent off-tanks, we have Atlas here. Now, Atlas is a very difficult character to play, but definitely rewarding. Considering his shield cannot be broken, I could see an argument for him being higher or lower than Ashe. I would say the fact that he counters Terminus so hard that alone for me would put him just above Ashe. I'm going to put him in A tier though. So we're starting off with a lot of good characters already. And next up we have Barrick. Now Barrick is a very good character. He's one of the most sustainy point tanks there are. And while he did receive a little bit of nerfs after getting some crazy buffs, he's still back to where he was beforehand, and I think that is still a really solid position. I still think he does very well. I could see him being in A tier, actually, along with these other tanks, so I'm going to put him there for now. He might move down a little bit, or there might be some characters placed between him and Ashe, most definitely, to be honest with you. But that's what I'm going to do for now. So next up we have Bomb King. And Bomb King, while receiving some nerfs a few patches ago, like 3 or 4 patches ago, is still a very usable character. Splash damage is... blasters in general are kind of awkward to play, because they by nature can't be a hit scan target, and we are still kind of in a hit scan meta, so you know, it can be hard for a little Bomb King, but I still think he can do crazy amounts of damage. So I'm actually going to put him in B tier. There was definitely a time where he could be considered a contender for best in the game. That's not so much the case anymore, but I'm going to leave him in B tier for now. And yeah, we're going to move on. So Buck is an interesting character because I've heard from just about everywhere that he's actually a decent character, and I just don't see it. I don't feel like he excels at the flanking position that he's been assigned to. Um, he has the uniqueness of being bulkier than most flanks, but then again, so is Moji. Moji's very bulky, and she's not very good. So I don't think that justifies it. I think I'm gonna put Buck in D tier for now, and yeah, I'm gonna leave him there for the time being. Now, I would like to mention now that I'm kind of trying to average how a character performs, like between console and like controller or KBM, keyboard mouse. So if we were talking keyboard mouse, I think Cassie is the best damage character. Um, Not so much on controller, considering she's not hit scan. Aim assist can't help you now. Uh, but she can still do really, really well on controller. And still might be the best damage character on controller. Um, so I'm actually going to put her... I'm going to put her at the... I'm going to put her right there between Ash and Atlas for now. And I think I don't really see a damage character being placed above her. Maybe one that I can think of. Um, maybe. But I still think she is an extremely solid character. Um, and so next up we actually have Corvus. Um, Corvus is hard because he used to be so good, like best support in the game, in a double support meta that was just not fun to face. Like, you could just pocket people from across the map, and you still can do that, just not quite as well. Grand Design just isn't as good of a card as it was. Um, I still think he's solid. I'm actually going to put Corvus in C tier. I was thinking going into it that he was probably going to be a B tier, but now that I think about his impact and the healers we have coming up, I just can't see him being higher. He might get moved up to B tier. I haven't decided yet. I'll move on for now, and I'll think it over as we go into this more and place some more healers on the actual board. So next up we have Dredge. And Dredge is not an excellent character. He can work on some maps. And I will say I'm only considering Siege as a game mode. I'm not considering Team Deathmatch or Onslaught. I'm strictly considering, like, Siege banless. So any character can go. Because, like, if you're thinking ranked, you might run into more of a certain character than another, and that could impact how they do. But as far as Dredge goes, while he can work on some maps, he's never, like, the best choice. He can't really hit aerial targets at all. His kind of shtick is just cover the point, make it kind of hard to get to, and try not to die. And he's pretty damn bulky. He can get out of a lot of situations. But I'm actually going to put him around where Buck is, in D tier. So next up we have Drogos. And Drogos is actually not super great, but he can do well in certain matchups. He can be annoying to face. You kind of need a counter for him, some way to cripple him, or some form of, like, high damage hit scan to shoot him out of the sky. For those more familiar with Overwatch, he's basically the Pharah equivalent, if my memory serves me correctly. I'm not much of an Overwatch player. I'm going to put Drogos I'm gonna put him in C tier for now. Maybe that's too high, but I feel like Drogos does so well on the maps that he is good on that it's more impactful than a Dredge, because I feel like you have to have something for a Drogos, you know what I mean? You have to, like, have that counter to him, whereas Dredge just isn't really that big of a threat at the end of the day. Any old flank can get him. So yeah, I'm going to leave him there for now. And next up we have Eevee. Now Eevee does get shut down by Cripple, Stun, and Silence, if that's your prerogative. Pretty damn hard. She's probably more reliant on her mobility than any other character in the game, considering she has the lowest health pool and the most drastic mobility. And her damage output is pretty good. While she is a blaster and not a hit scan champion, I would say she's about similar to Bomb King, maybe a little bit higher. Just because it is hard to cripple her when she's teleporting around all the place. It's just, it can be awkward, especially if the Eevee is really good. And I feel like maybe on controller she'd be a little lower, on keyboard she might be a little higher, so I'm going to kind of average between them. Say she belongs in B tier, maybe not the top, but that could move around later. And next up we have Fernando. Now Fernando is actually pretty solid. The problem with Fernando is the meta right now is not very favorable to him. In a meta where Furia is doing Furia things with her kill beam and Khan being as good of an off-tank as he is, Fernando can struggle. Anything that can take Fernando out of shield is a problem for him. Lex also being in the meta as he is. So I'm actually going to... I still think Fernando is very solid if you don't have those counters facing you. I'm going to put him in B tier, around there. I'm going to... You know what? I'll put him in the top of B tier. I think in a double tank meta, it's hard to count any tank out. So, you know, while you don't really have a whole lot of range, having that blast damage that can just kind of cover the point when you're the off tank, or when you're the point tank, my bad. It's just super useful, and I just think Fernando is solid. And speaking of Furia, now we have Furia, and while her beam did get a pretty solid nerf to her Exterminate beam, Furia is still an excellent character. She got some buffs, they got rolled back a little bit, but she's still pretty solid. I don't think she's the best healer in the game, but her supportive role is very good considering she's able to just take out enemies pretty handily with her kill beam. So I'm going to put her... I'm going to put her in A tier for now. And she might move down, she might move a little bit up in the tier, but I can't see her being S. I feel like there's only like 1 or 2 S tier supports, and I feel like she's not one of them. So next up we have Grok, who never used to be good, but is now seeing a rise, getting the biggest buff of this update, I would say. Grok is now a pretty damn solid character. I would put him up in B tier. I won't go into the details about what they buffed about Grok, but I will say his totems now being buffed can make him a usable support, whereas before he was more of a DPS, to be honest. Now he can kind of be both at the same time, which is very, very nice. And I think he is now a very welcome addition to your team. I could even see an argument for him being like in Furia's place and switching around with Furia. For now, I'm going to put him in here. Let me know in the comments if you think he's higher. I would love to be proven wrong. Alright, so next up we actually have Grover. And Grover is one of the characters I said, one of the supports I said could be a contender for S tier. And I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pull the trigger of my own choosing and put Grover in S tier. I don't think he's second best in the game. I think there are characters better than him, and also better than Androxus, but for now, I'm going to put him right there. There's not a whole lot to say. DR plus good healing plus good CC, that's a good support character. That's all I need to say. So next up we have Amani, and Amani she's okay. I actually think Amani is not as good as Drogos. I'm gonna make that call. And you can ask anyone I play with in Paladins. I really despise Amani, to be honest with you. I don't like her as a character, but at the end of the day, I really don't think she's very good. I would say Amani is around right here. I'm going to put her a little below Drogos. Maybe I'm giving Drogos too much credit in this tier list, and maybe I'm not giving Buck enough credit in this tier list, but this is what I believe, and I'd be happily proven wrong. So next up we have Inara, and she has fallen far from her best point tank in the game, but maybe not that far. I've been seeing her being picked up a lot more and more, especially on double tank comps that already have their off tank fill. It's like, well, just play Inara. Especially now that Makoa is no longer broken. I think Inara is an excellent character still. Now, I'm trying to decide if I think Inara is better or worse than Barrack. And my gut tells me no, to be honest with you. Barrack's sustain is superior, and while Inara's health pool is higher, Barrack has mobility, Barrack has higher damage output, and Inara does have the advantage of being able to negate crowd control effects, and Barrack can get shut down pretty hard by basically anything that can get through his shield, whereas Inara's shield just kind of blocks everything. I still think Barrack is slightly better, but I think they're both pretty solid point tanks, and they should go in a similar area in a tier. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Now, Io has fallen far from her once incredibly good position on the tier list. With Luna no longer being able to push the cart, you can no longer do the 5-man zoning that made her so good. Her healing numbers can still be insanely good, but the appeal to the character was originally the 5-man zone that made her broken. Now I can't see her being higher than a nerfed Corvus. I'm going to put her... Who else do we have left in this as far as supports? Yeah, I'm going to put her here. That pains me, because I've really enjoyed playing as Io. But it is what it is, you know, it's not... I didn't balance the game, Hi-Rez did, and I think it's a solid balance change. It was maybe a little bit much. I feel like a rework would have been better, but I won't get into that. I'll move on. I'm sorry. Next up we have Genos, and this is another character that was top of the line, dropped to close to bottom of the barrel, unfortunately. Luminary went from 15% damage increase to whoever you're healing to a 10%, and while that 5% might not seem like a whole lot, it is. It really honestly is, because before there was no reason not to play Luminary, and now it's like there's some debate there. There's cripple grab, and it's useful. I'm actually going to put Genos still higher than Io, but not higher than Corvus. I'm going to put him... Actually, I will put him higher than Corvus. I'll put him at the bottom of B tier. I still think he can do well, but he usually won't. That's what I'll say. So next up we have Khan. And I said great praises about Atlas and Ashe being excellent off-tanks. And Khan is better than both of them. I'm going to put Khan in S tier. His ult is excellent. Easily the best part about him is the ult. On top of that, he also has very good sustain for an off-tank. And the ability to kind of almost like pocket, in a way, like a DPS on the sidelines, is very useful. You can basically just stand in front of them with your big ol' shield, and you kind of just roll over people. His DR on his grab is good. His battle shout can net your whole team heals if used correctly. It's really not like Khan's a great addition to any team. And really his ult is what you pick him for, but he comes with the full package, and that's honestly a good package, to be honest with you. There's not a whole lot else for me to say about Khan. He's an excellent character, and I'll move on. To Kinessa. Kinessa is still a really good character. They keep nerfing her, and she still manages to be good. So I don't know exactly where to put her. Obviously, she loses pretty hard to flanks, but like snipers have to lose to flanks, otherwise there's no point in having flanks in the game. So I am going to put her... I'm trying to decide between like bottom of A tier or like top of B tier. Even though she's really annoying to face, like I personally really hate facing her, I'm going to go ahead and put my bias aside and try to think, you know, logically. Well, hit scan though. I'm going to put her at the bottom of A tier. I think she's still a really solid character. Yeah, I could... I feel like that's an okay placement for her. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know in the comments. You know, as always, tell me anything you disagree with. You can write a paragraph. I'll read it. I promise. So next up we have Koga. Koga's not a good character. He's really not. He already wasn't very good. He's kind of like the noob slayer, I'd call him. He loses so hard to cripple. I think I have no reservation whatsoever about putting Koga in F tier. His ult is terrible. His dashes while making him invincible, which is very nice. You know, it's not... Ooh, excuse me, it is currently 4 in the morning, so pardon my yawns. But yes, Koga is just not... He's just not. I'll leave it at that. Next up we have Lex. And Lex is a fantastic character. Lex can absolutely dominate a backline. Basically, if you're Lex's target, you can expect to lose the fight. Otherwise, you know, he's not excellent, but if you go for your targets as Lex, he's super fast. He's just really good ground control. I'm trying to decide if he's better or worse than Androxus, and I actually think he's better. I'm going to move Androxus to the back here of S behind these two, just to give some separation between those two flanks, because I do feel like there is a good amount of separation. I feel like Lex is probably the best flank in the game. Now, just off based off the top of my head. And next up here we have Leon. And Leon is a really, really good character. You know, in a hit scan meta, she is absolutely fantastic. I can't see really why she hasn't been getting the nerfs that some of the other top characters that have been getting. But I'm gonna go ahead and put her up right in front of Androxus. Well, no, I'm actually gonna put her. I'm gonna put her here, and I'm actually gonna move Knesset here. Solely because I think Cassie is better, but I also think Cassie is not S tier. Yeah, I think that's a fair placement for her. Impactful, impactness wise ishness. Yep, I nailed it. Next up we have Maeve. And Maeve is... It's weird because Maeve always seems good and she never gets nerfed, and then she always ends up like middle of my tier lists. And you know what? That spot right in the middle of B tier is calling out to me for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't give it enough thought or something, but I feel like I can't think of where else she would be. She's definitely like better than these characters, but I don't know if she's really better than these characters. So I'm gonna put her right about there, right below Grok. I'll honor Grok and his buffs a little bit more than I have been. And so next up we have Makoa. And while Makoa's nerfs were severe, but also necessary, I still think he's pretty solid. I'm going to put Makoa right around Genos, because they both kind of got nerfed in the same patch, and were hit pretty equally hard. Yeah, I would say, because like Genos just got his best thing like negated a little bit, and Makoa got his best thing negated, being Luminary and Barrier Reef, respectively. So I'm going to go ahead and work with that. And next up we have Maldamba. And Damba is excellent. I'm going to put him in S tier along with Grover for the same reason I put Grover up there. What did I say about Grover? DR, great heals, good CC. What does Damba have? DR, good heals, great CC. I actually think I'm going to put Damba one step higher than Grover. While I think Grover's easier, and I would probably get higher numbers with Grover as like someone who's not excellent at support, I think that Damba is better. He's just an excellent character. Like, Damba fits on a team very well. His healing numbers are can be really, really, really good. His ability to peel with his ult and with his stun. His reload stun essentially gives him like a fifth ability. It's really nice to have. His invincibility on his dash is better than, in my opinion, it's better than Grover's ability to just go really far. And having the Gourd for self-healing on top of being already really bulky, and using the Gourd for group healing as well. I think Damba is an excellent character and worthy of the S tier location that I've put him in. If you don't agree, then let me know. And let me know where I should put Damba. So next up we have Moji. And while I love Moji, probably my second favorite character in the game, Yeah. She's just not very good. Her range is so lackluster. Um, Once people start to have brains and know not to shoot at your magic barrier, it all kind of goes out the window. Your whole game plan is lost. Uh, what else is there? I mean, your hitbox is the size of a whale. Um, your head hitbox is also massive because it's basically your entire like upper body. Um, it's There's just not a whole lot good you can say about Moji. Even having an elimination ult that just one-shots people, she has like the worst of the elimination ults. Maybe like, it's just not great. Um, so I'm sorry. I love Moji probably more than you do, but this is my opinion. This is what I believe to be true. So it is what it is. Next up, we have Octavia, and Octavia is actually the character I considered putting above Cassie. Um, while she did get nerfed, she still melts things. And her close range, like, unscoped damage did get buffed, actually. Um, so I actually think there is a good enough argument to put her in S tier still. Um, she was like basically the best character in the game before her nerfs, and I still think she's really good. She kind of got the Victor and Vivian treatment, but not hit quite as hard because her DPS in the first place was like unheard of, insanely overpowered. Um, and while her abilities aren't very good, neither were Victor and Vivian's in their prime, and still aren't great. So, um, plus she has more mobility than those two. I think she's worthy of her S tier spot as well. Um, a character definitely not worthy of an S tier spot would be my good friend Pip. Um, I believe Pip to be the worst support in the game, worse than Io, and I'm going to go ahead and put Pip in D tier. I think Pip can do okay at healing, because the thing is, I think Koga and Moji are just not worth playing at all, but I think these characters can work, especially map dependent. Um, and Pip has an excellent ult that can wipe out multiple players on a team, provided they don't have like resilience, a lot of it, and supply. Sorry, I'm so tired. um, I'm also losing my voice. So yeah, Pip I think is not very good, but usable enough to put in D tier. Rom is a very good off tank. Struggles a little bit as a point tank. Gets shut down harder than about any other character in the game by CC, except for maybe like Eevee. Um, but being such a critical role as a frontline, it can be difficult to you know, especially in ranked where you can get counterpicked so easily. Like, Rom does struggle, but also still does insanely well. For a tank, he still has like one of the best DPSs in the game, like in the tank category, I should say. Um, with I believe it being 800, higher than some damage characters even. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and put Rom. Hmm. Right now, I'm trying to deliberate whether Rom is better or worse than Fernando. And while one is an off tank and one is a point tank, I still think that's relevant to decide um, based on where I put him. I'm going to go ahead and put Rom one space above Fernando. I think there's sufficient evidence to prove that Rom is better. Now, maybe I'm a little biased because I am pretty good as Rom. and maybe he's put a little bit too high, but I honestly think that's a fair placement for Rom. And next up we have Ruckus. Now Ruckus is another one of those characters that I just cannot justify playing. I can justify a little bit more so than Koga and Moji, just for the fact that double tank meta is very good, but there's so many good off tanks. Like look at Rom, Ashe, Atlas, Khan. You could use any one of those. You could even play like Pluck Makoa, and that would be a better decision than picking Ruckus. I can't really justify picking Ruckus in any setting whatsoever. He does have some mobility, which can be nice on certain maps like Serpent Beach. Like, unique among the tanks is his vertical mobility. It's just not necessary, I feel like. You know, it can help you reach high up places that you can usually just walk to. That might take you an extra 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds on certain areas. Either way, I just can't see that being enough of a reason to pick Ruckus. I feel like Ruckus is like... just don't pick Ruckus. That's all I'm saying. So next up we have Saris, and Saris actually is pretty solid now. It's weird to say because before I would have put her around where Io is, but actually now I'm going to put her above Jenna. I'm going to put her right below Grok. I think Grok is slightly better now that his buffs are here, but I think Saris can put up some of the highest healing numbers. Like, literally earlier today, I guess I should say yesterday because it's like 4 in the morning right now. Besides the point. Either way, I put up like 200k damage just by holding down the button and really never felt threatened because of Mortal Reach increasing your healing numbers and allowing you to just sit farther back while you heal. It is insane. I would say Saris is one of the easiest supports to pick up, which is like, it's fortunate that you start with both Genos and Saris because they're so like easy to pick up. In fact, all the characters you start with are pretty easy except for Cassie. But either way, I think that I think Saris is solid now. I know this B tier is filling up a lot, but I think there's a lot of like mid-tier characters because I feel like this game isn't too out of balance. I'm actually going to go ahead and move Genos to the top of C tier. I've decided that there needs to be a tier separation between him and Saris as far as supports go. So next up we have my personal favorite character in Paladins. Actually, Shaolin is my wallpaper on my phone. I don't know if you can see that too well. There he is. I absolutely love this character. Being able to cripple somebody every 5 seconds is super powerful. I actually play him on controller too. I know that's kind of uncommon. Most people consider him a PC damage character. And while they did nerf the cripple, I've reworked a card pack to run so that the cripple is at the duration it was before the patch. I lose out on some of my card pack levels, but at the end of the day, you really don't need a lot of Shaolin's card packs. I still have room for a health card even with that change. So in a meta that is hit scan, I'm going to put him below Kinessa, but I still think he's about here. You know, I know I'm a little biased. Maybe he's a little higher than he should be. Maybe he's too low, though, because I also, again, I play on controller, so there's a chance he's up by Cassie, but I'm going to be fair and think more about hit scan meta and consider that he's probably not quite as impactful as Neil or Kinessa on the daily, but he is more of a matchup dependent character because he plays better into flanks and into like characters like Rom. Anyone who relies on their movement tool, Sha Lin shuts them down super hard. Victor, it's very, very rewarding to play Sha Lin, I will say. I will stop gushing about Sha Lin and move on to our next character, Skye. Now, Skye is... I like to consider her a noob slayer along with Koga, but I also feel like she can do well in a higher level setting as well. Even in like platinum level ranked, I've seen her do really well. And that's solely because of Debilitate just absolutely shredding tanks. Now, as far as flanks go, I can't consider her to be higher than Eevee. And while I think she is good, I'm going to go ahead and put her in the top of C tier. Oh, not D tier. C tier. I think that's maybe a little low. I'm actually going to move Makoa down here too and keep him next to Genos, like I said earlier. Because I feel like their nerfs got hit the hardest, like, equally. And maybe by the end of this video, I will move Skye up to B tier, but I don't think she's bad. In fact, I think none of the characters in this tier are particularly bad. I think they're just underwhelming, underperforming, compared to the characters that are in their class, such as Maeve and Eevee. I think Maeve and Eevee just do better. They have better mobility. Skye doesn't have mobility. She relies on the opponents hopefully not buying Illuminate. So next up we actually have Strix, and out of the three like main snipers, being like Kinessa, Strix, and kind of Sha Lin, I would say Strix is now the worst. Considered once at one point to be the best damage character in the game, now considered not even to be the best sniper in the game. I actually think Strix is somewhere around here in D tier. A lot of damage characters got hit really hard. Some maybe needed to get hit more than others, but I think it's actually a fair placement to put Strix as low down as this D tier. In fact, I could even see Buck being more impactful to a team than Strix. I still think he can do well, and I don't think he's unusable and unrecommendable like the F tier, but you definitely will have your work cut out for you quite a bit. So next up we have Talus, and Talus is actually a really solid character. Having better mobility than Skye, a better ult than Skye, I'm trying to decide if Talus is better than Eevee and Maeve. And honestly, I don't think so. Maybe he's easier to play, but at like a similar performance, I feel like Eevee and Skye, or Eevee and Maeve do better. So I'm going to put Talus up here, and we're going to roll with that. Up next we have Terminus, and Terminus is no doubt, in my mind, the best character in the game. I won't talk about him too much because I could ramble on and on about how broken Terminus is, but Terminus has a shield that essentially can't be broken, can be held on his teammates. While it has limited charge, you can charge it by using it, essentially, because your Calamity Blasts that do like 450 damage each that you can charge 5 of, each give you back your Siphon, and also swinging with your axe can give you Siphon. And while you don't have a whole lot of range on your main weapon, your Calamity Blasts that charge really quickly anyway, just They just kill things from a distance. Absolutely destroyed, especially if you're using Decimation. On top of that, he has the only movement tool that you keep if you get crippled or like stunned out of it. For some reason, you just get it back, free of charge. You know what works like that? Ults. And if you want to talk about ults, Terminus is contender for the best one in the game. Because he gets a second life as a frontline when he's already hardly killable. It is ridiculous how stupid this character is. I don't think he should be allowed to be in the game at the level of, like, competence he is. It is ridiculous. I just don't think it's straight up fair. It makes me mad just thinking about it. I'm going to move on to Tiberius. Now, Tiberius didn't really get any buffs. In fact, he got a couple nerfs. But every other damage character did get nerfs. So he just kind of like sat there and watched all of his damage character brethren fall beneath him. And so actually, I think he could go as high as A tier. I honestly do. I think he is probably better. He's definitely better than Shaolin. For me right now, it's a matter of whether he's better than Kinessa enough to... Because I do think he's better than Kinessa. But it's a matter of whether I think there's actually a tier gap there or not. And I actually think there is. I think Tiberius is an excellent character, especially map dependent. Like on Jag Falls, Ice Mines, Bright Marsh. I don't know. There's a lot of maps he does really, really well on. But even the maps he's bad on, I still feel like he can do pretty damn well. And even with Heavy Blade nerfs, I still think it's still an excellent move, and he's still a good character. And it's not even that he got buffed, it's just that the supply and demand for good damage characters has gone up, and it's shed some light on Tiberius and shown that, wow, he actually can do really, really well. And Torvald is another character that has fallen far from grace, much like Makoa and Genos. And actually, in my opinion, I think he fell a little further. We went from seeing this character banned all the time, and insta-ban in ranked, to pretty much never even played in casuals. I'm going to put him in D tier, because I do feel like he is playable, much like all the other characters in D tier, but I can't really recommend him anymore. Because, especially with the potency of some of the other supports, I know he's a tank technically, but off tanks and supports, like these three alone, really all you need. Really all you need. And if you need something else, look a tier below. If you need something else, look a tier below that. Honestly, you just, like, even look at this tier, and you'll find better uses than Torvald. So, I can't really justify picking him over anyone above, but I also can see an argument for him being used on certain teams. My goodness, I can feel my voice like cracking. Ugh. Get this over with. And next up we have Tyra. Now, Tyra is certainly a character in the video game. She has some amazing damage potential and cripple potential with her burn monster talent. On top of that, she also has some of the best DR in the game. Definitely the best on the damage characters list. I feel pretty comfortable saying that she's an S tier character. I could even say she's right here. And that disappoints me. Tyra is an excellent character. She shuts down areas so well with her firebomb. You just can't walk through it if she's burn monster. And even if she isn't burn monster, it still hurts like hell. She can throw it on tanks. She can just chuck it on the point for days. Her DR is insane. Like, She can just soak hits like it's nothing. And that's really all she has. She doesn't have mobility, but she doesn't need it. She's just a solid backline damage. And like I said, like everything else got nerfed, so it just kind of like brought her up. You know what I mean? Especially she's hit scan. Her damage may not be as good long range as like characters like Neil and Cassie and Tiberius even. But her Firebomb and DR alone make up for all of that. On top of that, she can deal with flanks pretty damn well with her reveal and her damage output. And while her ult's not excellent, you know, really neither is like the other top damage characters like Cassie, Leon, and like Octavia even, Tiberius. They just really don't have the best ults. So I am losing my voice pretty hard, and this is definitely going to be an hour-long video, so I'm going to wrap this up as soon as I can. Next up we have Victor, and Victor he got hit hard with a baseball bat to the teeth. Victor, I could see an argument for being worst damage character in the game. He just doesn't have that appeal anymore. Like before, he had the DPS. He had it. And he still has good DPS. And that's really all he has going for him anymore. Besides being like a really easy character. He just, you know what, maybe he's better than... No, actually, I don't think he is better than Dredge. Because at least Dredge is good on certain maps, but it's like... And while I don't think Victor's F tier, I can't recommend playing him super hard, except for like if you need the easy character. And I've seen him do well in this meta. He's still a hit scan champion, and he can melt things pretty damn quick. Like he can go toe to toe with Rom pretty well, and most squishies can't. Vivian's actually going to be a similar story. I think she is better than Victor. I'm going to put her up here at the top of D tier. I still don't really like Vivian, like facing her, but if I'm being completely honest, her DPS is no longer insanely ridiculous. Her ult is no longer just a free win button. Yeah, not much more to say about that. It's just Victor and Vivian got hit hard, and that's all there is to it. So next up is Vora. Vora's okay. So Vora's base damage isn't great, but she also has pretty good CC for being a flank, which is kind of hard to come by with a lot of flanks. A lot of them don't have it. Like Eevee has it attached to her ult, and like that's pretty much it. Like some of them have knockback, but that kind of doesn't really count. Yeah, there's just not a whole lot of flanks with good CC, so she is unique in that aspect. But I can't put her higher than Sky, I feel like Sky is a little bit better. I'm going to put her right below Sky. Because I feel like she can have some good impact. And she can blow you up if she like sees you before you see her, basically. But pretty much any character can do that, so... You know, I'll leave her there for now. Next up we have Willow. Willow's actually not terrible, especially map dependent. I'm gonna go ahead and put Willow in C tier as well, along with this cluster of friends. I feel like she's slightly better than Drogos. Drogos has the better ult, but his cooldowns are so long, and his abilities just aren't as good also, so I feel like shorter cooldowns and better abilities is just what's keeping Willow at the spot above. Um, and really, I don't have much more to say. It's just generic mid-tier blasters. Next, we have Yagarath. And I kind of despised Yagarath, but I don't really see her played a whole lot. So I don't really have a whole lot of source material, to be honest with you, outside of like the first like 2 weeks she was released, where I just really didn't want to play the game because I hated facing her. And honestly, I don't really think she's all of that in a bag of chips. Um, I don't think she's as good as Rom or Fernando. I do, however, think she is better than Makoa. So maybe I will add yet another character to C tier right here, just right at the top. Just because her health pool is absolutely ridiculous. She can just kind of roll around and works better, honestly, for being such a big thing that can't really even move on its own without like changing forms. It works better as an off tank, I've found, than a point tank. Because having such a high health pool means basically you don't lose to a squishy. You win that fight. And granted, Rom and Aura kind of do that too, but there's really not a whole lot to say. You just are you are the tankiest of tanks. You may not be the sustainiest of tanks, but you have the most health. You have the most like DR. So it is what it is. It do be what it do be. Last 3 characters here. So now we have Ying. Ying is actually not bad. Ying has been on the rise for a while now. I'm actually gonna put Ying. I'm gonna put Ying around here, actually. I think she's pretty damn solid. I don't really know what else to say about Ying other than that, like, her healing is solid. Her damage output can be really solid if you're playing Focusing Lens, but even if you're playing Life Exchange, like, her healing numbers can be off the charts. I don't recommend Resonance, but she has one of the best ults in the game. And the other really good ults are like Furia and Grok, so they're like really not like too far away. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have a whole lot more to say. It's just Ying is solid at healing. She's a solid supportive role. Not really a whole lot of crowd control that she has, but she doesn't need it super hard. She has good defensive mobility. And yeah, so we're going to move on to Zen, who actually got hit pretty hard by his nerf and his particularly good talent. However, Zen already had access to other good talents, and also his guillotine talent is still very good. It's just not quite like a free kill every time you ult. It's now, not 100% guaranteed that you basically get a kill if you land it. However, I still think Zen is an excellent character. I'm actually going to put him in A tier right here. And last but not least, we have Vatu. Vatu's hard to place for me. I've actually had a lot of frustrations facing Vatu, but I also don't think he is too excellent and too crazy good. I'm going to go ahead and place Vatu right around where Vora and Sky are, but I don't know exactly where in that area. I'm trying to decide if he's... because I haven't had a lot of chance to play against him, I'll be honest. or I've played against him quite a bit, but like I haven't experienced a whole lot of his kit. Um, and I've only played as him like a couple times. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Vatu is not as good as Sky for sure, but I'm gonna say he's better than Vora solely for his burst potential, whereas Vora doesn't really have that burst potential. Her initial damage is kind of low, and she kind of does her feed off of you type thing. Vatu can just kind of melt you before your brain can process it, which isn't really exclusive to Vatu, but it's something that Vora really doesn't have all that much of. So, yeah, I feel comfortable with this tier list. I don't think there's anything I would change right now. Yeah, this video breached an hour already, so I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep, give my voice a rest, although I really enjoy making these videos. Um, I recorded a bunch of them back to back to back, so my voice is shot to oblivion. Um, but I really appreciate you. If you watched all the way to the end, I really, really appreciate you. And if you skipped to the end just to see the finished tier list, I am always thankful for just anytime someone clicks on my video, because it puts a smile on my face. Um, honestly, if you disagree with my tier list entirely, I won't be disappointed, because I love making these, and I'm so glad that you stick around for my journeys. Follow me on Twitch. I know that's kind of a shameless plug, but this is also my channel, so I'm going to do whatever I want. Follow me on Twitch. Whenever I'm streaming, I stream all sorts of games. Probably going to be Chivalry 2 coming up. And yeah, please play Paladins. It's a great game. It's free. My favorite price for things. And goodbye, y'all.